Hey, this is Nicholas with some more adventures in locksmithing. Here I'm going to be changing out my blower motor for my AC unit. You've seen I've been going through the ringer with this van lately. I've had to have the clutch, fan clutch for the actual cooling down the motor, but at the same time my fan went. Now, I was told it was going to be about $350. I looked up the part, got it for about 90 bucks, 80 bucks, somewhere around in there, and saw videos that it was pretty easy. So here I am. It's really just removing 4 bolts. First, this bolt on the coolant overflow. So we're removing that, and you just kind of pull it out to the side. You don't disconnect any of the tubes. You just pull it to the side, and that was a 10 millimeter. Now here's a 5.5 millimeter, 3 bolts on the actual fan unit. And so you just got to pull those off. And this is proving to be something was a whole lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't until my dad mentioned, why don't you have one of your friends that's a little bit more, does auto mechanics on the side do it. And I realized, you know what? I bet this is something I can do. All my skills as a locksmith, this isn't like I'm taking the actual engine apart. Stuff with timing and that kind of stuff, I don't mess with. All these new cars have all sorts of sensors and stuff, but this is pretty much a plug and play type deal. So you undo these things, and then there's a little rubber gasket ring. I'll show it later, but it goes around it, and it's what actually holds the tubing to the fan on, and then the little electrical plug there. Those are the only things I have in here to move that spool away to get to that last bottom bolt. But it comes off pretty easy. And, like I said, it's just a pretty simple thing. But it hit 102 degrees today. And when you don't have the money to get it fixed, you're a small business owner, but you're out in that weather, you've got to figure out one way or another to get it fixed. So here we see there's our broken one. Nothing you can tell that's broken on it, but it just, it's not going in. There's that little tube there, and so that gasket kind of goes around, holds it to it. Pretty simple. And then here's our new one now. I didn't get the right part. Originally, I thought it was only going to be about 40 bucks. I was really happy with that price, and then when I got it, it didn't have the right connector port for the electrical. So I ended up having to swap and exchange it out for the right one. But here we see it's fairly simple. You just plop it in, and it lines up with the holes. And it's just the 3 holes, and you line it up so that the tube hole is on the right side. And then I go ahead and get the first one started. I snapped that electrical in there. That was a mistake. As you'll see, I'll have to remove it later. But it kind of was helping hold it in place. So we'll say that was my reason. And as you're seeing, this whole video is only 11 minutes long. So the actual act of doing this took less than 10 minutes. And I'm saving myself about $250 taking this 10 minutes, or, well, if you consider buying it and all that, really a half hour out of my day, and getting myself some AC so that I stop cooking as a locksmith. So this something, and it's just too hot. I was in a situation where it's like, I'm going to get a heat stroke if I'm out here in this, because if the van doesn't ever get a chance to cool off, even driving with the windows down, the van itself doesn't cool off, and it gets to be 5 to 10 degrees hotter than it is outside. So just putting these bolts back on. You can see this is simple, basic tool stuff. This is nothing fancy. If you've got a ratchet set, you have all the tools you need, as long as it's got a 5.5 in it, and you're not going to have a set without a 10 millimeter. But 5.5. My first set that I looked at didn't have it, so I had to go grab my other set with all the halves. But it goes on there easy enough. And one thing you want to make sure, so this screws into plastic, so I'm not tightening it down too tight, and I'm making sure that I'm kind of going around. You know, you want them all to line up, you want everything to sit right, so don't tighten one down too much, and then you can kind of go back and recheck them all. That one there in the left hand corner, it wouldn't stop spinning. Like I said, it's securing into plastic, so I don't think that was ever going to get any tighter. Now I go to put the little O-ring on. I had to remove that electrical port again to get that on there, and then there's the other part just pushes on. I got that on there, and but it didn't sit quite right, so I was a little concerned about that. I'll focus in here in a moment and show that. But that was my hardest part, is that the new part, the interiors of the fan were kind of hitting the tube, and it wasn't going completely flush, but in the end I was able to get suction. But that was probably the most difficult part of this whole thing, was just getting that thing properly into place. And that just slides in there. See, making sure all the tubes are still locked into the little things that they pop into to hold them in place. You just got to do that mainly so that nothing's touching anything hot and melts. So that's really what all those guides are for, and the purpose of them. Get this piece down tight and good. This actually tightens down. This isn't into plastic. Okay, now you're going to see where it connects in on there. There, you have to get it through these little zip tie there to hold the other tubes up. But this is the part that I was talking about that wasn't going quite flat. Okay, moment of truth here. Hear that? I hear it. Well, we now have AC. So hopefully I won't be sweating so much soon. This is something that I'm very glad. I want to thank a few people for motivating me to do this. First off, Price of Reason. He's someone I do the Quantum Leap streams with, talking nerdy talk, but he keeps calling me for advice on things, on car trouble, different things that I kind of think around in my wheelhouse. And so I'm answering the questions to the best of my ability for his stuff. It made me realize this is probably something I could tackle instead of doing the 350. So I looked it up. Originally, I had seen a part that was $48, but turned out that was the wrong part. So I ended up having to get a different one, but it cost me about $90 for the part. And the mechanic was going to charge about $350. I guess $90. But when it comes to labor-wise, it took me about like 15 minutes to put it in. So not very much. It's just undoing one 10mm bolt and three of the 5.5mm bolts, and just removing that little parts there. But fairly simple thing. Nice to have AC now. And also my dad, he said, hey, why don't you call Andre, a friend of mine that does it. And I got to thinking, I'm like, this is a kind of a simple thing. And it wasn't until he said something, and then I got to thinking, I could probably just do this. It's not like it's a super complicated, involved part. Because originally, I know Andre in our worship congregation, he helps a lot of the different ones out, a lot of the elderly, infirmed, and single mothers and stuff like that. Helps them do their car part. But I thought, I usually don't want to bug him anything too involved, because everybody else is getting him, and he does all this stuff on the side to his regular job. He's not a mechanic, he's just very mechanically inclined. But that got me thinking, hey, this is something simpler. I probably don't need to be using the car dealership and all of my locksmith know-how made it possible. So this is just some more adventures in locksmithing, adventures in vehicle ownership, adventures in small business owners, because small business owners always have to find a way to save a buck. And with that, I hope everybody's having a good day. Hope everybody's AC is working, and I will catch you in the next video.